everyone. I'm Melissa here, and welcome to your Melissa Moment. Hello, everyone. Melissa here. Welcome to your Melissa Moment, and welcome to Turn the Page Thursday. I am super cozy, comfy today. We are reading Stephen King's You Like It Darker, Danny Coughlin's Bad Dream. This short story is anything but short. I feel like it's starting to drag a little bit, and I wanted to get to the point. So last week, we found out that Danny is getting kind of pestered by the detectives. They've also made some tips to tabloid papers and such, and Danny has lost his job. Also, everyone in the small town is now basically shunning him and causing him nothing but grief. And from what he's saying, he had nothing to do with the murder. I don't know. It's possible. And if he did have nothing to do with the murder, then what's happening to him really sucks. So let's jump back into it, see what happens in the next few little chapters here. Ella Davis puts her phone in the pocket of her slacks and goes back to the party. Her sister is doling out cake and ice cream to half a dozen little girls wearing party hats. Davis's daughter, birthday girl and star of tonight's show, keeps casting greedy eyes at the pile of presents on the sideboard. Lori is 8 today. The gifts will be opened soon and soon forgotten, except maybe for Adora, a doll that cost Davis 40 hard-earned bucks. The little girls, fueled by sugar and primed to party hardy, will play games in the living room, and their shrieks will fill her sister's house. By 8 o'clock, they'll be ready to fall asleep while the umpteenth showing of Frozen plays on the TV. "Who was that?" her sister said. "Was it your case?" "Yes. One dish of ice cream has already been spilt. Mitzi, Regina's beagle, gets on that right away." "It wasn't him, was it?" Regina asks, whispering. "Coughlin?" "Then use your fork, Olivia." "No," Davis lies. "When are you going to arrest him?" "I don't know." "Arrest who?" a little girl bugles. "Her name is Mary. Or Megan. Ella can't remember which." "Arrest who?" "Nobody," Regina says. "Mind your beeswax, Marin." "I don't know, Reg. That's above my pay grade." When the cake and ice cream have been served and the girls are eating, Davis excuses herself and goes out on the back porch for a cigarette. She's troubled by the idea that Frank approached Coughlin in the market, deliberately marking him out, saying to the witnesses to the confrontation, "This is him. This is the guy who did it. Get a good look." She's more troubled by the idea that Jalbert may have given Coughlin's name to the only publication that would run it. She doesn't want to believe he'd do that, and mostly she doesn't, but there can be no doubt that Frank has homed in on Coughlin. He's fixated. Wrong word, she tells herself. The right one is dedicated. She's mostly troubled by Coughlin himself. He did seem relieved when Frank said they had DNA, and was happy to give a sample for comparison. He did know Davis was lying about the girl's fingerprints on the dash of his truck, but that could have been because he wiped them. He could also have been because Wicker, poor Miss Yvonne to Jalbert, was never in the cab at all. He could have wrapped her dead body in a tarp and put it in the back. If he got rid of the tarp, it would also explain why they found no hair, prints, or DNA in the truck bed. But why wouldn't he have buried her in the tarp? Or it could have been because Yvonne Wicker was never in the truck at all. No, I don't accept that. Coughlin also offered to take a polygraph, almost begged to take one. Frank had shot that one down, and for good reasons, but her sister comes out. Lori's opening her presents, she says, with the faintest etch of acid. "Do you care to join?" What the hell happened to innocent until proven guilty, Inspector Davis? Yes, Ella says, putting out her cigarette. Absolutely. Reggie takes her by the shoulders. You look troubled, hun. Was it him? Davis sighs. Yes. Proclaiming his innocence? Yes. You'll feel better once he's locked up, won't you? Yes. Later, with the girls in their jammies and clustered on the living room floor, entrance as always when Elsa and Anna sing For the First Time in Forever, Ella asks Reggie if she's ever had a psychic experience, like a dream that came true. Not me, but my friend Ida dreamed Horst was going to have a heart attack, and 2 weeks later, he did. Really? Yes. So you believe such things are possible? Reggie considers this. Well, I don't think Ida is a liar, but I'd believe it more if she told me about the dream before Horst had his heart attack. And it's not like he wasn't asking for one, fat as he is. Look at your kiddo, Al. She loves that doll. Lori is cradling auburn hair Adora to her chest, and Davis suddenly has her own vision. Danny Coughlin stabbing Yvonne Wicker again and again, then climbing on top of her in a cornfield and raping her even as she bled to death. They know it was a cornfield because there was corn silk in her hair. If he did that, he deserved everything Frank throws at him, she thinks. Then standing in the doorway next to her sister, she realizes it's the first time that deadly and disloyal, that too, two-letter word has entered her thinking. There's something else too, and she's willing to admit to herself, only to herself, that it was what really shook her. Has he been spouting random numbers? Not having to do with anything, just off the cuff. She's heard Frank do that several times, more since they've been investigating the Wicker murder, and it probably means nothing, but he's lost weight and he's so fixated on Coughlin. Don't use that word, not fixated, dedicated. He's Wicker's advocate. He wants to give her justice. Only, what if is the right word? Halfway back to Lyons, Jalbert pulls in the cracked and potholed parking lot of an abandoned strip mall. He feels if he doesn't get out of this car and do some counting, he will explode. It's still daylight and will be until 9 o'clock. Not too far away, a giggle of girls is watching Frozen. He's running it out, Jalbert whispers. That son of a bitch is trying to run out the clock on me. Oh, his head throbbing. He runs both hands through his arrowhead swoop of hair. On either side of the widow's peak, he can feel tiny beads of sweat. He needs to count. Counting will soothe him. It always does. And when he gets back to his 2-room celebration center suite, he can run the chairs. He won't be able to sleep until he does. What was once a game to pass the time has become a necessity. He walks from his car to the front of an abandoned pawn shop, 33 steps, which is 17 and 16. He walks back, 15 and 14. He walks back to the pawn shop again, 13, 12, 11. The last 3 baby steps because that trio totals 36 and it must come out right. He's starting to feel better. 10, 9, 8, 7 takes him back to his car. He makes a fist and raps it on the hood 21 times, counting the numbers off under his breath. He can't arrest Coughlin yet. Never mind the county attorney, the KBI director put the kibosh on that, and Jalbert is forced to admit the director's right. The story of the dream is absurd. But without anything else, even that small-town lawyer, Edgar Ball, could get the case dismissed. Or maybe he wouldn't get it dismissed. If the county attorney was stupid enough to take such a dumb case to trial, Coughlin would be found innocent and couldn't be retried. Double jeopardy, case closed. Jalbert needs something that will pry Coughlin open so the world can see the psycho beneath those wide-eyed proclamations of innocence. He has to grind. He has to turn the screws. Jalbert decides to walk around the strip mall, counting carefully from 1. He's made it to 26, 351 total. When he returns to the front and sees a highway patrol car, misery lights flashing, parked beside his unmarked Ford. A trooper is using his shoulder mic to call in his license plate. He hears Jalbert coming and turns, hand going to the butt of his Glock. Then he sees Jalbert's KBI windbreaker and relaxes. "Hello, sir. I saw you parked here and you did your duty, your due diligence." 26. "Good for you. I'm going to reach into my pocket and show you some ID." The trooper shakes his head and grins. "Not necessarily. Frank Jalbert, isn't it?" "Yes." He holds out his hand. The trooper shakes it 3 times. Just right for a handshake. "What's your name, trooper?" "Henry Carlton, sir." "Are you investigating the dead girl?" "Miss Yvonne, yes." Jalbert shakes his head. "Poor Miss Yvonne. I stopped to stretch my legs and think about my next move." "The guy who reported the body looks good for it," Trooper Carlton says. "Just my opinion." "Mine too, Troop. But he's hunkered down." Jalbert shakes his head, kind of laughing at us, to tell you the truth. "I hate to hear that." "We have to grind, find a way to turn the screws." "I'll let you do your thinking," Carlton says. "But listen, if I could do anything to help, I know it's unlikely." "Not that unlikely," Jalbert says. "In this world, anything is possible." 16. Carlton frowns. "Pardon?" "It's a sweet number, that's all. Speaking of numbers, give me yours." Carlton eagerly. "You bet, sure." He takes a key HP card from his breast pocket and scribbles the number of his personal on the back. "You know, I was thinking about applying to KBI myself." "How old are you?" Jalbert takes the card. 24. 8 tripled. Good. Want some advice? Don't wait too long. Don't put it off. And have a good night. You do the same, and if I can, help in any way, I'm going to keep that in mind. Might give you a call. Trooper Carlton pauses, getting into his car, and looks back with a grim little smile. "Get him, Inspector." That's the plan. At his hotel, Jalbert stops at the front desk and asks if they have folding chairs. The clerk says he believes they do in the hotel's business center. Jalbert asks the clerk to send 3 up to 521. "On second thought, I'll get them myself," Jalbert says, and does just that. There's a dozen or more leaning against the wall, so he takes 4. 4 is a good number. Better than 3. Hard to say why, but even always beats the dickens out of odd. He takes 2 in each hand and carries them to the elevator, ignoring the clerk's questioning look. He unfolds 2 in the small sitting room and 2 in the bedroom. He now has 8 chairs. The bed and the toilet seat count. 1 to 8 inclusive makes 36. 1 to 24 inclusive makes 300. 1 to 4 inclusive makes 820. People wouldn't understand. Most people. But it's really a beautiful thing. A kind of from the top-down pyramid scheme that pays dividends, not in money, but in clarity. As he nears the end of his 5th round of chairs, he knows what his next step must be. He folds up the chairs he's brought from the conference room and stacks them next to the little desk. They may come in handy. He takes his suitcase out from under the bed and opens it. From the elastic pouch, he takes a pair of thin rubber gloves and puts them on. Time to grind. Then he calls Trooper Carlton. Time to turn the screws a little more. Early on Friday morning of the week from hell, Danny is awakened by a loud metallic thud, followed by the rev of a car engine, with either a bad muffler or no muffler at all. The clock on his nightstand says it's 2:19 a.m. He gets up, grabs the flashlight he keeps in case of power outages, and goes to the front window of his sitting room. Nothing is stirring out there except for a cloud of moths circling a pole light standing tall between the park's office and laundry. Oak Grove, where there are no oaks, is fast asleep. That loud thud has awakened nobody but him, because it was meant for him. Danny opens the door. He sometimes forgets to lock up at night, but he supposes that after Plain's Truth and Jalbert's little show in the IGA last night, that will have to change. He goes down the concrete steps and clicks on the flashlight, searching for the source of the thud. It doesn't take long. There's a divot in the trailer's aluminum shell just below the frosted bathroom window. Danny surmises it was the window his nighttime visitor was aiming for. There's a smear of red in the deepest part of the divot. Danny runs his light down the side of his trailer, and there on the gravel is a brick. Wrapped around it and secured with a twist of wire is a note. Danny knows what it's going to say, but squats and pulls it free anyway. The message is short, written in either black crayon or a felt-tip pen. Get out, you fucking murderer, or else. Danny's first thought on reading this is not on your life. His next is, oh really? Is that a movie? Are you Clint Eastwood? Standing here at 2 a.m. with a threat in one hand and the brick that delivered it at his feet, getting out of Manitou seems not only reasonable, but attractive. His friend Becky, a friend with benefits, is through with him. She'll keep sweet little DJ away from him as if he has the bubonic plague and he's lost his job. Bonus attraction. It seems like half the town is COVID. He doesn't much like the idea of being driven out like Cain after he murdered his brother, but this trailer park is nobody's idea of Eden. It might be time to give Colorado a try. He thinks Stevie would like that. He wonders if that noisy car he heard going away was Pat Grady's Mustang. It might well have been, but what does it matter? Danny goes inside and back to bed, but first he locks the trailer door. On his last day as an employee of the Wilder County School Department, Danny is moving books from the storage room to the teacher's lounge, which serves as the de facto history and English department. The books will be stacked there, ready to be passed out to students when school recommences in September, by which time Danny Coughlin hopes to be far away from Wilder County. Jesse comes jogging up the hall from where he's been scrubbing baseboards in the new wing. He meets Danny outside the library and says, "Just a heads up, that cop from the other day is coming to see you. The one with the funny..." Jesse rubs 2 fingers on his forehead, indicating Jalbert's widow's peak. He parked around back. "Is the woman with him?" "Nah, by himself." "Thanks, Jesse. Guy's got a real hard-on for you, doesn't he?" "I'll come down and help you as soon as I get these books offloaded." Jesse persists. "He's not going to arrest you, is he?" Danny cracks a smile at that. "I don't think he can, and it's driving him crazy. Go on now. Let's make our last day a good one." Jesse goes. Jalbert is in the lobby, once more examining the trophy case. He has what appears to be a rolled-up newspaper in one hand. Maybe he meant to spank my nose with it, Danny thinks. That's a welcome ray of amusement in the dread he feels at seeing Jalbert again. He knows dread is exactly what Jalbert wants him to feel. Danny would change if he could, but he can't. He starts down the hall just as Jalbert comes through the door. "Did you have a nice 4th?" he asks. Danny doesn't bother with that. "What are you doing here on your own?" To his surprise, Jalbert actually answers the question. "My partner's daughter is sick. Too much cake and ice cream, she thinks. I need you to come to Great Bend this afternoon." "Am I under arrest?" Jalbert shows his pegs. "Not just yet. I need you to give an official statement. For the record. All about the dream you had. Once your dream becomes public knowledge, I'll bet you can get it on TV. All that publicity you ever dreamed of. Too bad Jerry Springer's dead. You'd fit right in with the whores and deadbeats." Accusing me of being a publicity hound when you're the one who leaked my name? That's pretty fucked up, even for you. "It wasn't me," Jalbert says, still smiling. "I'd never do such a thing. Must have been one of your neighbors." Danny could tell Jalbert one of his neighbors, or maybe it was Pat Grady, threw a brick at his trailer last night. Could even show him the note. It's in his pocket. But that'd be fruitless. Instead, Danny asked Jalbert why he waited so long to ask him to make a report. "'Cause you were hoping for something better, right? Not a statement, but a confession. Only your bosses wouldn't find my confession very satisfactory. Think about it, Inspector Jalbert. I don't know where she was stabbed or how many times or with what." "You were in a kill frenzy," Jalbert says. He believes in Danny's guilt as fervently as Danny's late mother believed in Christ the Redeemer. "It's common with homicidal maniacs. It's an old term. Probably not politically correct, but I like it. It describes you perfectly." "I didn't kill her, just found her." Jalbert shows what's left of his teeth. "Tell me about Santa Claus, Danny. I love that story." I don't punch out until 4, which means I can't be in Great Bend until 6:30 if I keep to the speed limit, which I intend to do. I'll wait for you. Ella Davis, too. Or you could punch out a little early, it being your last day and all. Danny is so tired of this man. I thought you might also like to see this. Jalbert unrolls the newspaper. It's the Oklahoman. Jalbert turns to an inside page and hands it to Danny. The story is headlined, Murdered Girl Comes Home. There's a photograph. It's what Jalbert wanted him to see. Danny thinks it's the real reason Jalbert came. The picture shows all anyone needs to know about human grief in a single image. Yvonne Wicker's father is holding his wife, whose face is buried in her shirt. His head is cocked skyward. His mouth is pulled down in a grimace. The cords stand out on his neck. His eyes are squeezed shut. Standing behind them, next to a long black Cadillac with Hearst Mortuary on the side, is a young man in what appears to be a high school letter jacket. He's wearing a baseball cap. The brim obscures his lower face. Danny guesses it's Yvonne's kid brother. Danny thinks he's looking at something the movies and TV dramas rarely express or even comprehends, the human toll. The hammer of grief and the stupidity of loss, the wreckage. His eyes fill with tears. He looks down at the picture and the headline. Murdered Girl Comes Home. Then up into Jalbert's face. He's astounded to see the man is smiling. Oh, look! The murderer cries. It's like one of those Italian operas. Danny almost hits him. In his mind, he does hit him, smashing Jalbert's nose to one side and sending blood down the other side of his mouth in a red F.U. Manchu mustache. The only thing that holds him back is the knowledge that Jalbert wants that. He wipes a hand across his eyes instead. At least tell me her folks don't know about the dog. At least tell me that much. No idea, Jalbert says, almost cheerfully. I was not the informing party. That was a detective from Oklahoma City. My job is working the case, Danny, which means working you. Danny is still holding the newspaper. It's crumpled. He smooths it out and holds it up for Jalbert to see. Do you want to see another mom and dad in this picture like this? Because whoever killed her may not be done. He could get 2 or 3 more while you're fixated on me. Jalbert recoils as if Danny has waved a hand in his face. I'm not fixated. I'm dedicated. I know you did it, Danny. There was no dream. You didn't need to dream to go where she was buried because you buried her. But let's agree to disagree. Be in Great Bend by 6:30 or I'll put your name and plate number out to KHP. Bring your lawyer if you want, and you can keep the newspaper. You might like to gloat over what you did to her family. 4 Vicks for the price of 1? He turns, the tail of his black coat flying, and walks back toward the lobby. Inspector Jalbert! He turns, eyebrows raised, smooth skull on either side of that weird widow's peak, as pale as cream. Do you grind your teeth? Jalbert's brow furrows. What? Your teeth. They're all worn down. Maybe you should get one of those rubber dams. They sell them at Walgreens. My teeth are hardly the subject under Does it help when you count? For the first time, Jalbert looks really rocked back on his heels. I looked that up this morning before I came to work, Danny says. It's called arrhythmomania. Do you do that? Do you do it when you wake up in the night because you're grinding your teeth? Also, for the first time, Danny sees a vein pulsing in Jalbert's right temple. Ticka, ticka, ticka. You killed her, smart boy. We both know it, and you're going down for it. He leaves. Danny stands where he is, crumpled newspaper in hand, trying to get himself under control. Each encounter with Jalbert is worse than the last. He wipes his eyes with the arm of his work shirt. Then he goes back to moving books. Last day. Do it right. At lunch, he goes out to his truck for his phone. He owes Margie a call. Needs to tell her that he's lost his job and Kansas has lost its charm, at least for him. He's thinking about Boulder. She'll understand that. She likes Stevie. If she needs money, he supposes he can part with a little, but not too much until he gets a job. He'll be living on what he's got. Besides, she's getting married, right? He opens the passenger door, reminding himself he also needs to pay Edgar Ball, and gets his phone out of the glove compartment. He starts back to school, head down, checking for text messages, then stops. He's thinking about something Jessie said. He parked around back. Why would Jalbert do that? When the faculty parking lot is the one closest to the school. Danny can think of one reason. He goes back to the Tundra. He gives the truck bed only a cursory glance. It's empty except for his toolbox, which he keeps padlocked. The cab, on the other hand, is unlocked. He always leaves it unlocked, and Jalbert would have seen that. Danny might have even told him and his partner himself. He can't remember. He goes through the accumulated crap in the glove compartment. Weird how it piles up. Expecting to find nothing, and nothing is what he finds. Jalbert wouldn't have put anything in there. Not once he saw it was where Danny kept his phone. The center console strikes him as more likely, but there's nothing there either. Although he does find a bag of M&Ms he meant to give Darla Jean the next time she showed him an A paper. DJ gets lots of A's. She's a smart little thing. He looks in the side pockets, nothing. He looks under the passenger seat and finds nothing. He looks under the driver's seat and there it is. A glassine envelope containing white powder that can only be cocaine, heroin, or fentanyl. Kansas is hard on hard drugs. Danny knows. The kids get lectured on it at assemblies all the time. This is too small an amount to be considered with intent to distribute. But in Kansas, even possession is a Class 5 felony, which can get you 2 years in jail. Does Jalbert want him in prison for 2 years, 90 days in county, more likely on a drug charge? No, but he does want him in jail, because then he can work on him, and work on him, and work on him. The guards might work on him too, if Jalbert asked. Behind the seat is a space where all sorts of crap accumulates, including a crumpled McDonald's bag. Inside the bag is a hamburger wrapper and one of those cardboard sleeves that once contained a fast food fried apple pie. It's just the right size. Danny picks up the envelope of dope by the sides and slides it in, bending the sleeve so the envelope won't rub, blurring any fingerprints that might be on it. Prints are unlikely, but possible. He puts the cardboard sleeve back in the McDonald's bag and puts the bag in his dinner bucket. When he goes back to the school, Jessie is at the picnic table. "Be with you in a bit," Danny says, and goes inside. He puts the bag on a high shelf in the storage room behind some cleaning supplies. Then he phones Edgar Ball. "Are you still my lawyer?" "I am until you need a pro," Ball answers. This is interesting. They talk for a while. Edgar Ball promises to drop by the high school around 2 and to meet Danny at the KBI station in Great Bend at 6:15 that evening. Danny promises to give him a check for $400. "Better make it 5, considering what you're asking me to do," Ball said. Danny says, "Okay, it's fair, but it will take a big bite out of his nest egg." He calls Margie and says he may not be able to help out very much for a while because he lost his job. She tells him she gets it. "Have those cops talk to me?" she asks. She says. Have those cops talk to me, she says. "I'll tell them you're a shouter, not a stabber. The idea of you killing anyone is flat crazy." Danny says she's a peach. Margie Bobargie to Stevie. Says you're goddamn right I am. He takes his sandwich and thermos out to the picnic table and has a nice lunch with Jessie. "I'm going to miss this place," Jessie says. "Weird but true. And I'm going to miss working with you. You're a good boss, Danny." "You'll catch on somewhere," Danny says. "I'd write you a reference, but, under the circumstances." "Yeah," Jessie says and laughs. "I feel ya." Edgar Ball shows up at 2:15. Danny gives him the check and the McDonald's bag. "Sure you want to do it this way?" Ball asks. "You'll be going out on a limb." "I'm already out on a limb," Danny says, "getting further out all the time." They punch out at 3:30, half an hour before their usual quitting time. Danny locks up the school for the last time, all 7 doors. Jessie gives Danny a man hug, and Danny returns it along with a couple of slaps on the back. Danny tells Jessie to take care of himself and stay in touch. Jessie says for Danny to do the same. Danny drives to Oak Grove, keeping an eye on the rearview mirror, looking for cops. He sees none. When he gets home, he finds a note taped to his door. It's short and to the point. Move out. We don't want you here. He pulls off the door, tosses it in the kitchen trash, takes a quick shower, and puts on fresh clothes. Then he calls Ella Davis. Danny Coughlin again, Inspector. How can I help you? By trusting me, just a little. Danny tells her what he wants her to do. She doesn't say yes, but she doesn't say no either. He sets out for Great Bend and has covered about 30 miles when a KHP cruiser pulls out of a farm road and comes after him, lights flashing. The trooper gives him a blurp of the siren. Totally unnecessary because Danny is already pulling over and powering down the window. Once it's open, he puts both hands on top of the steering wheel where they can be seen. The trooper's name is H. Calton. He comes up to Danny with one hand on his Glock. The strap has been unsnapped. License and registration, please. My license is in my wallet, Danny says. I'm going to reach into my hip pocket and get it. He does so, moving very slowly. Once he's handed his driver's license to Trooper Calton, he says, now I'm going to reach into my glove compartment and take out my registration. Do you have a weapon in the glove compartment? No. In the center console? No. Go ahead. Once again, in slow-mo, Danny opens the glove compartment and takes out his registration. You got proof of insurance? Yes. He starts to reach for the glove compartment again. Never mind the insurance card. Sit still, Mr. Coughlin. Calton goes back to his cruiser and gets on his radio. Danny sits still. 5 minutes pass. He's going to be late getting to Great Bend, but that's all right. Jalbert doesn't think he'll be there at all. Having verified that the 2011 Tundra he's pulled over does indeed belong to Daniel Coughlin, a thing Calton already knew, Danny is quite sure. The trooper returns to the driver's side with Danny's paperwork, but he doesn't hand it over. Do you know why I stopped you, Mr. Coughlin? Danny says he doesn't. You were weaving all over the road. Danny knows that isn't true, but keeps quiet. Have you had anything to drink today, Mr. Coughlin? If you're asking about alcohol, the answer is no. How'd you feel about a breathalyzer test? Willing to take one? Yes. How about drugs? Been using any of those? Pot, ecstasy, cocaine? No. Would you consent to a search of your truck? Don't you need a search warrant or something for that? Not if I've observed you driving in a dangerous manner. You can consent to a search or I can impound your vehicle. Okay, Danny says, opening the door. I have an appointment, so I guess you better search. Trooper Calton makes a show of searching the cab, saving the underside of the driver's seat for last. He spends a long time looking under there, even getting his flashlight from his cruiser. Then he slams the door and gives Danny a flat look. What about that breathalyzer? Danny asks. Sir, are you being smart with me? Danny can't tell if the cop's cheeks are flushed or if it's sunburn. No, but I wasn't weaving, and we both know it. I'm going to write you up for reckless driving, Mr. Coughlin. I wouldn't do that, Danny says. If you do, I'll see you in court, where my lawyer will ask if you spoke to Inspector Jalbert of the KBI prior to pulling me over. Then you'll have to decide whether you want to tell the truth or commit perjury, which might or might not come back to bite you in the ass. Do you want that? Calton takes a minute while trying to decide if he wants to push this. It's not sunburn. Definitely a flush. Danny thinks it's nice not to be playing defense for once. Calton hands him back his license and registration. Try to keep on your side of the road from now on, sir. Danny almost pushes it a little farther, almost asks if Calton doesn't at least want to give him a warning, and decides enough is enough. Calton is armed, and he still hasn't snapped the strap over the butt of his service weapons. I will, officer. Get out of here. Calton follows him for 5 miles, almost riding Danny's bumper, then turns off. The rest of Danny's trip to Great Bend is without incident. Edgar Ball is waiting for him at the far end of the KBI station's parking lot. He asks Danny how his trip was. Danny tells him about Trooper Colton. Unbelievable, Ball says. Are you sure you want to take that dope back? It should be safe enough now. Jalbert took a shot. Danny hopes he's right about that and also hopes he won't be arrested later by Inspector Davis. Ball opens the trunk of his car and hands Danny the McDonald's bag. Danny puts it in the center console, and this time he locks his truck. Let's go in, Danny says. Watch Jalbert when he sees me. That'll be interesting. But it's not. What they see is the barest flicker of surprise. There and gone. The room, equipped with audio-visual recording equipment, is crowded. In addition to Jalbert and Davis, there's a tubby bald guy named Albert Heller and a suit-wearing beefcake named Vernon Ramsey. Heller is the Wilder County attorney. Ramsey is a detective from Oklahoma City. With 6 people crowded in, the feel is downright claustrophobic. Somewhere in this facility, there's probably a more spacious conference room, but conferencing isn't what Jalbert and Heller have in mind. What they have in mind is breaking Danny down, now that he's here. Introductions are made. Hands are shaken. Danny and Jalbert forgo this. The Miranda warning is given, this time by the county attorney. Heller finishes by announcing for the record that Mr. Coughlin has brought his counselor at law. Heller takes the lead, covering the same ground that was covered at Danny's last interview. They sit facing each other, with Edgar Ball on Danny's side of the table and Ellis Davis on Heller's. Ramsey leans against the wall, face impassive. Jalbert stands in the corner with his arms crossed. Under questioning, Danny recounts the dream. He recounts his trip out to the abandoned gas station in Dart County. He recounts his clumsy attempt to make an anonymous report. When Heller asks why he called, Danny tells him about the dog. It was digging her up, chewing on her. I'm sure you saw the photographs. Heller tells him they need to know much more about where Danny was during the first 3 weeks of June. Danny says he'll help all he can, but he doesn't keep a diary or anything. When Heller runs out of questions, Vernon Ramsey, the Oklahoma City cop, steps forward. Did you kill Yvonne Wicker? No. Ramsey steps back. He has no follow-up questions. Jalbert whispers something in his ear and Ramsey nods, face impassive. Heller winds things up by telling Danny not to leave the county. Danny shakes his head. I'm actually planning to leave the county and the state. My name was printed in a free handout newspaper. I'm the prime suspect, and somebody wanted to make sure everyone in central Kansas knew it. Danny's eyes flick to Jalbert. Jalbert looks blandly back. I can assure you no one involved in the murder investigation gave your name to the press, Heller says. That was unfortunate, but nevertheless, it would be a very bad idea for you to leave the town of Manitou, let alone Kansas. It would have Consa arrest me, Danny says. If you want to keep me in Kansas, arrest me. Heller stares at him. Ella Davis looks down at her hands, which are folded on the table. Ramsey appears to be studying the ceiling. Jalbert is openly glaring. You can't, Danny says. You have no proof that I killed Yvonne Wicker because I didn't. I only reported the body, so don't tell me there would be consequences. Actually, there would be, Ball says, almost apologetically. A suit for false arrest, filed by me. I strongly advise you to stay where you are, Heller says. Leaving would only make you look more guilty. From the corner, in a mild voice, Jalbert says, he is guilty. Danny takes a folded piece of paper from his back pocket and hands it across the table. Not to Heller, but to Davis. It says, get out, you fucking murderer, or else. It was wrapped around a brick. The brick was thrown at the side of my trailer in the middle of the night. That's a consequence of getting my name in the paper, Mr. Heller. The well has been poisoned. He again flicks his eyes to Jalbert. The next brick could be at my head. Ramsey says, where are you going? I'm thinking Colorado. I have a brother there and I don't see him enough. It won't matter where you go, Jalbert says. Miss Wicker will follow you like a bad stink, one that won't wash off. Danny knows this is probably true. He looks at Ramsey. Are you pursuing any other suspects? Any at all? Maybe a boyfriend she dropped and wasn't happy about? A bad home situation? Ramsey says, the OHP investigative division isn't in the habit of sharing information with suspects. Danny didn't expect any better. He has an idea that OHP isn't pursuing any suspects in Oklahoma, and for good reason. He thinks that there is no connection between Yvonne Wicker and her killer. She was hitchhiking, got picked up by the wrong person, and it cost her her life. He stands up. I'm leaving. No one stops him, but Jalbert says, You'll be back. In the parking lot, Danny shakes hands with his lawyer, who drove his big honker of a Honda from Manitou. He said very little, except for the zinger about suing for false arrest. That was a good one. Otherwise, what was there to say? Are you sure you want to take a chance on Davis? Ball asks. Danny shrugs. You're thinking she'll arrest me for possession when I show her the coke. Compared to what's hanging over me, that's a minor risk. Ball rocks back and forth on his feet. If you didn't kill her, you're the most divine liar I've ever come across. Even better than my Uncle Red, which I would have thought impossible. I didn't, Danny says. He's getting tired of saying that. Sorry, guys. I'm going to cough here in a second. Okay. It's only a couple of miles from the KBI station to where he's supposed to meet Ella Davis. But Danny goes the long way through Great Bend's paltry downtown, checking his rearview mirror, doing his best to make sure no one's following him. When he finally arrives at the coffee hut, it's 8:30. There's a paved parking area in front, dirt in the back. That's where Danny parks, pulling up next to a RAV4 sports utility. He's pretty sure it belongs to Davis. There's an action figure on the passenger seat that he recognizes, thanks to Darla Jean. It's Elsa Oldenburg from Frozen. I didn't know Elsa's last name was Oldenburg. Did you? Anyway. He goes inside. Davis is in a booth around the corner from the counter, where she can't be seen from the main parking lot. I didn't think you were coming, she says. I was getting ready to leave. I wanted to make sure I wasn't followed. Sure as I could, anyway. She raises her eyebrows. You really are paranoid, aren't you? It was for your benefit as well as mine. I don't think Jalbert would like you meeting me behind his back. She spared a response by the arrival of a waitress. Danny, who hasn't had anything to eat since his sandwich at lunch, orders country ham with gravy and a Coke. That will clog your arteries, Davis says when she's gone. Beats a brick in the head. Frank Jalbert thinks you wrote that note yourself. He would. Why are we here, Danny? I've got a babysitter and her meter's running. Danny tells her about Jalbert's visit to the school. To inform Danny he needed to make an official statement. Also to show him the picture of the grieving Wicker family in Oklahoma. But he had another reason. I wouldn't have known if Jessie, the kid I work with, hadn't mentioned that Jalbert parked out back when it's only steps to the front door from the faculty parking lot, which is empty in the summer. That made me suspicious. I checked and found a little envelope under my driver's seat of my truck. He slides the fried pie sleeve across to her. It's in here. Might be heroin, but I think it's Coke. For the first time since he's met her, Davis's professional veneer cracks. She lifts one of the sleeve's end flaps and peeks inside. I handled the envelope just by the sides. I doubt if I left any fingerprints. He's too smart for that. But on the off chance he slipped up, you might want to check. She recovers smartly. Let me get this straight. You're accusing Frank Jalbert, 20-plus years as KBI inspector, half a dozen citations, including 2 for bravery, of planting drugs in your truck? I'm sure he's a hell of a cop, but he's convinced I killed that woman. Only that's not right. Not enough. He's obsessed, and if you haven't seen it, I'd be very surprised. You could have planted this on yourself, Danny. I'm not done. He tells her about the bogus highway stop and how Trooper Calton spent most of his time looking under the driver's seat. He skimped everything else because he knew where it was supposed to be. And as far as planting it on myself, ask Jesse Jackson about Jalbert parking around back. He'll tell you. The waitress is coming with Danny's food. Davis sweeps the fried pie sleeve into her purse with the side of her hand. When the waitress is gone, Ella points at his plate and says, "That looks like something the dog sicked up." Danny laughs and digs in. There. Now you sound like a human being. I am a human being. I also work for the Kansas Bureau of Investigation, and that makes me a doubting Thomas. Jalbert gave my name out to that rag, plain's truth, you say. You're as obsessed with him as he is with you. I have to be. He's trying to nail me for a crime I didn't commit. And what can I do to fight back? Let out the air in his tires? Slap a kick me hard post-it on the back of that black coat he wears? Only talk to you, and that's a risk. My lawyer said you might arrest me for possession. I'm not going to do that. She watches him eat and twiddles at the small gold cross she's wearing around her neck. Let's say, for the sake of argument, that Frank gave out your name to that one outfit that would publish it, and that he planted cocaine in your truck. Assuming it's not talcum powder or mannitol, just for the sake of argument, let's say that. Do either of those things prove you didn't rape and murder Yvonne Wicker? Not in my book. Danny can't argue that. I will get what's in your little envelope tested, and I'll talk to that guy at Plains Truth Anderson. Text me your young assistant janitor's number, and I'll also get in touch with him. Now I have to go. She starts to get up. That little gold cross, is it just for show, or are you a believer? I go to Mass, she says warily. So you can believe in God, but not that I had a dream about where Wicker's body was. Have I got that right? She touches the little gold cross briefly. Jesus performed 30 miracles, Danny. You had one dream, or so you say. The check's yours. I just had coffee. Danny says, Lady, you don't know how much I wish I'd never had that motherfucking dream. Ella Davis pauses. She's almost smiling. You're an engaging guy, Danny. Reasonable, friendly. At least that's the face you show the world. What's underneath? I don't know. But I'll tell you a secret. She bends over him, fingers splayed on the table, little gold cross swinging. I'd like to believe you. Maybe I even could. Except this is the only goddamn psychic dream you've ever had. Why you? I ask myself. Great question, he says. Guys who win the lottery probably ask themselves the same thing. Only this is the opposite. I don't know why me. It's easier for you to believe I killed her, isn't it? By far. Do me one favor. Be careful of Jalbert. I think he might be dangerous. It isn't just planting drugs or giving out my name. That counting thing is bizarre. I looked it up. It's called arithmomania, she says, then looks like she wishes she could unsay it. She leaves without looking back, that big purse of hers swinging. The waitress comes by and says, Save room for blueberry buckle, hun. I'll try, Danny says. On his way back to his hotel, Jalbert uses a burner phone to make a call. There were no drugs in his truck, Carlton tells him. Not under the seat, not anywhere. That's all right, Jalbert says, although it's not. He found them and got rid of them, that's all, like a wolf smelling a trap. As for you, Troop, you know nothing, right? You just stopped him because he was weaving. That's right, Carlton says. It might be smart to delete this call. Roger that, Inspector. Sorry it didn't work out. I appreciate the effort. Jalbert ends the call and puts his burner back under the seat. He'll hold on to it for a while, maybe another 10 days or so. 5 + 5, 4 + 6, etc. Then trash it and swap it out for another one. Does Coughlin know he planted the drugs? Of course. Can he do anything about it? No. The police would just say he planted the blow on himself. But finding it, Jalbert didn't expect that. Coughlin really is like a wolf, one that can scent a trap no matter how well it's concealed. He'll kill again if he isn't stopped. He must be stopped. Not just for poor Miss Yvonne, but for other girls who might be unlucky enough to cross his path. And if he goes to Colorado, Jalbert thinks, we could lose sight of him. Animals know how to hide, how to fade into the brush. He has to be stopped here in Kansas. Arrest me, Jalbert whispers, and brings a fist down on the steering wheel. Bang! The arrogance, the insolence. But you know what, Mr. Coughlin? We're not done. A long way from done. He thinks of Coughlin's face, his constant open-faced denials, his gall. Arrest me. Jalbert needs to settle himself so he can think about his next move. He needs to count. You guys. Why do I feel like this is just dragging? How do you guys feel about this story? Because I'm not joking. We have still got, oh my God, you guys. We have got still this much of this story. Seriously. Okay, well, until next week, we're going to continue. We're going to make it through. But Stephen King, I got to tell you, I'm struggling with this one. Like, there better be a really good ending to this one, because this is dragging. Did it take that long to tell us that he planted drugs and then he found them and took them out? And like, come on. Okay, anyway, that's it. Hopefully we get through it. Hopefully we get through it, guys. Let me know your thoughts on this story, because honestly, I could leave it and be happy. Anyway, I'm glad you guys are following along so I don't have to do this alone. As always, we'll see you guys next time. Bye.